I felt so alone, and I don't want to cry. I'm recording this 10 months later. I thought I have healed. Welcome to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Bantase, and if you're a returning subscriber, I see you, see me, see you, see Bantase. So as you can tell by the title of this video, I will be doing a birth story time. I will share all the bits and pieces that I have encountered, all of my experience with you guys, and I hope you guys will enjoy this video. So please don't forget to like, comment, and don't forget to subscribe if you are not yet subscribed. So before I start with this story, if you haven't watched my third trimester vlog, I will link it in the description box. Not vlog, man. If you haven't watched my third trimester update, please do go and watch it before you watch this story time. That's out of the way. So in my last video, which is my third trimester update, I told you guys that I was booked in on Thursday, which was the 21st of April, because I will be having a C-section on the following day, which was Friday the 22nd. Okay, cool. So I got booked in, and yeah, they did all the procedure. They checked my high blood, they checked my baby, and then I got my bed. I was sharing a room with 3 other ladies, so we were 4 in my ward, in my room. So yeah, I spent the night, and the nurses came in to check whether everything was going according to plan, and I was asked, they did the paperwork, and they asked which birth control I'll be taking after the birth and everything. Okay, cool. So the following morning, I was woken up by a nurse around 6, and I was told that I need to go in bath so that they could like check everything if it's still in order. So I woke up at 6 and I did that. I bathed and then went back into the room. My C-section was scheduled for around 11. Okay. So around 9 I was taken into theater, but not inside the theater, but in a place that's like what's this? Is it the front desk? Yeah, into the front desk before you go into theater. So I laid there with a bed, and I was asked a few questions. Some of them were like, do you know what you are here for? Yes. What are you here for? And then I told them for a C-section, and then they asked, what is a C-section? And then you tell them a C-section is when you give birth through operation. So they want to make sure that you are in your right mind, or rather it's just the precaution that you know what you are here for. Okay, so I waited until the other operations were done, and then it was my turn to go inside the theater, and it was so cold when I got in, and there were like a few nurses, I think 4 or 5 nurses, no, 3 nurses and 2 doctors, 2 female doctors and 1 male doctor. The male doctor was by my side throughout the operation. So there was that thingy that was covered above my belly, so I couldn't see what was happening on the other side. They injected me on my back, or is it my spinal cord? I don't remember properly, but I think it was in my spinal cord. And then a few moments later I was just numb. I couldn't feel my legs, but the first feeling that I had was a tingling feeling on my toes, and then after that my whole lower body was numb. I couldn't move and I was feeling so cold, and they put something like a heater on my upper body so that I could feel warm. So they did that and they started the C-section, the operation. When they started, I could like smell, you know, when there is some drilling or something, I could smell that kind of smell. And then the doctor who was beside me said, somebody's gonna see their baby girl soon. And then right after he said that, I heard a cry, and it was my baby girl. So they put the baby on the something like that's like a small cot. They checked the baby, they checked everything, they put something on her mouth, and the baby cried, and they took the baby and put her on my chest. And then it was like a 5 minutes thingy, and then they took the baby and went away with her. So they finished closing me up, and in a matter of seconds they were done. And then I was out of theater, back into the other area, but still inside the theater department. So there I was checked whether I was like shaking. I wasn't cold, but I was shaking. I couldn't stop myself. So I was asked whether am I feeling cold, how am I feeling, am I still numb? And I was still numb at that moment, and they covered me with something that was warm, and the shaking like calmed down a bit, so it eventually stopped. So they were asking me a few questions that I don't remember, all those type of questions, just to make sure that you are still in the right state of mind. Okay, cool. I think about an hour later I was returned back into my ward, and when I got there I was still awake but still numb. And then I think after 10 or 20 minutes they brought my baby in my ward. That was the second time I saw my baby girl. And then the nurse helped me to feed the baby, and I was still struggling a bit because it was just my breasts were swelling. So I kept on trying, and the nurse went away. I kept on trying, then my baby latched for like a few seconds, if not a minute, and then stopped. And I tried to feed her again. As I am trying to feed her, I hear a sound from her. That sound was like, it was more like a snoring. You know when you snore, like it was that sound. And I listened again, and then I tried to feed her, but then this sound like didn't sit well with me. And then I told one of the girls who were with me in the ward that I don't know what the sound is, but my baby's making a sound. And then I tried to call out the nurse, but I think they couldn't hear me because the front desk is like way down the corridor. So the girls helped me like call out the nurse, and eventually the nurse came in. And then I told her the baby's making a sound, and I don't know what the sound is or what's making her make the sound. And she took the baby from me, and I don't know where she took her. So I stayed there like I'm confused, and the nurse is not returning back to me and inform me about what was happening. So now it was around 2, closer to visiting time. The visiting time was around 3. Okay, still the nurses didn't come. Whenever I ask, when they came to check up on me, I asked what's happening, where's the baby. They kept telling me that the baby is in nursery, but they never tell me what was happening with her. Okay, so now it was visiting time, and my boyfriend came, and I told him the news that we took the baby to the, I told him that they took the nurses took the baby to the nursery because the baby was making a sound, and they haven't gotten back to me and informed me of what was going on. Okay, I told him that, and then he said he's going to check out the baby, and then he went to the nursery, to the NICU, and then I was still in bed. I couldn't like get out of bed because I was still numb. My lower body was still numb. He came back. He had taken a video, and he showed me the video. I'll play the video just now.
Hi. Molo. Yo. Go, look, miss. Go. Yes.
Okay. He showed me the video, and my heart just sank seeing my baby just lying there. I asked him, did they tell you what was going on? And he said that the baby was put on oxygen because they suspect that she has fluid on her lungs, in her lungs. And I just cried. Like, this was the first time that I actually experienced this. Like, I've heard stories of people saying this, but I never thought that one day I would experience it. Visiting time was over, and the nurses came in for the second round of checking our high blood, our sugar levels, all of that boring stuff. And then they like cleaned my wound and then put on a new plaster, and then I don't know what were they doing, like inside, where they put their hands and they come up with a few fluids, extra fluids, and then they would clean you up. Okay, so I kept asking the nurses, I don't know why they never like informed me about what was going on, and that kind of bothered me, because how can I give birth and then I am clueless about what was going on to my baby? That was the first thing that I didn't like. Okay, so it was now the following morning, the following day, the 23rd. It was like a day after I gave birth. So it was the first thing, the routine checkups and all of that. And then I was told that can you try and walk so that you could feed the baby at 11. 11 was I think the second time for feeding. it was feeding time. So I had my IV drip and I walked with it to the nursery. When I got to the nursery, like to the front desk, when I got there, the nurse was just talking to the doctor about my baby. She was like, "Doctor, that Maseti baby is sick. What are you gonna do about it? Please check the baby. She's really not well." And I just went there and said, "You are talking about my baby." And then they pulled me aside and then said that this is the way that you can go and check your baby. Your baby is not doing well, but the doctor will check her out in just a few minutes. And then I went inside. When I got inside, there was like a room full of babies, and not just any babies, premature babies. And that was the first time I saw a premature baby. Like, I've never seen a premature baby before, and they were all incubators. And whenever I looked on the side, like just the sight, I'm sorry, but just the sight made my heart sink. I legit cried, because I was like, inside my head, where is my baby in all of this? Like, I saw my baby, but it was like just a glimpse, because it was like I just spent like a few minutes with her. And when I looked on my left hand side, there was like a note with the baby details, and then I saw her and I went there. She was just laying there. She had like an oxygen in her nose, and her hand was wrapped. Her hand had an IV line that was wrapped with a bandage, and she was in her diapers, and I was just not okay. And it was my first time seeing her incubator, and I went towards her and I was told to, oh, when you get in, you have to like wash your hands. You have to wash your hands and then dry them out. So they told me that I should put my hand so that I could touch her, and I did. And then I was told to take her out of the incubator and feed her. And as I was trying to make her latch, I was just struggling because my breasts were like so full, so swollen, and it hurt. So the nurse helped me out, and I was crying. I was crying my heart out as I was feeding her, and the nurse like kept like telling me that no, the baby's gonna be okay. Just go back to your ward so that the baby cannot feel how sad you are. So they told me that when I return to my ward, I should express some milk, which is like pump out the milk out of my breast, so that they could like feed her with the feeding cup until I was feeling okay. So I went back to I put the baby back into the incubator, and I was told that the next feeding time is 2. And when I got back to my ward, I was so sad. I didn't even talk to anyone. It was 2 o'clock and the nurse came to collect some baby milk, and then I told her that I will go and check the baby at 4, which is the next feeding time. And I was so sad. I was really sad. So eventually I gathered my strength and went back at 4. And this time I was feeling like better, because I now know what to expect. So when I got there, that's when I asked questions. I asked what was wrong with my baby, and they told me that she has fluid in her lungs, so they have given her like an antibiotic, and they have wrapped her hand with the bandage because the baby kept like pulling the line, the IV line out. Okay, and then they told me that it will last for 7 days. She has to finish the antibiotic 7 days. The baby cannot like breathe properly on her own. That's why they put the oxygen in. So now I could feed my baby, and I held her for the first time in my arms. Not the first time, but like we actually spent quality time of our feeding time together, and it felt so amazing. I even had the strength to take like pictures, like not with me, but take pictures of her while I was feeding her. Okay, so I kept going back every 2 hours to feed the baby, and it was getting easier, and I was able to sleep at night knowing that I can interact with my baby, like I can see her. Now it was on Monday. It was day 4 of the antibiotics, and I was so happy, and my baby was doing well. Her weight was also growing, and the nurse told me that if your baby is doing so well, on Thursday it will be the last day of antibiotics. And the nurse told me that today let's just try and take off the oxygen so that we could see if she can breathe on her own. And we did that, and the nurse like timed her, and we put it back like after an hour. So we were doing that up and down. Okay, so on Wednesday she officially, which was day 6, she officially took off the oxygen, and it was just the littlest things that made me happy, like seeing my baby's weight, seeing how my baby gained weight every day, seeing the progress from being taken off the oxygen for like an hour or 2 to like totally removing it, made me so happy, and I couldn't wait to get home. So now we were just waiting for the antibiotics. We were waiting for her to finish off the antibiotics. Wednesday I was told that I could take, on Thursday I was told that I could take my baby to the ward that I was in. The way I was so happy, like even the girls who were with me in that ward were so happy for me. Like it was the first time that I would sleep with my baby, and I was the happiest girl. I couldn't wait for the next morning so that we could go home. So as we went back as I went back to the nursery for feeding time, I think it was around 8, the nurse told me that, hey, your baby is turning yellow. And I said, what do you mean yellow? And she told me to look at her eyes, and honestly I didn't notice that, because I don't know why I didn't notice that, but they were like a bit yellow. And then she said, let's keep the baby here in the nursery for the night. Again, the baby slept there, but not inside an incubator this time, but in a cot. I went back to my ward, and I just didn't understand what was going on. At 11 I went back again for feeding time. When I got there, I was told the baby has turned yellow, like her eyes were like totally yellow. And I felt like this is just a setback, because I was so happy that I know tomorrow I would go home. I would be able to go home with the baby, and now this. and I honestly felt like God was like turning his back on me. Like, how could he do this after so many days in this hospital? What now? Like, what's going on? What have I done? I felt like I was being punished for no reason, and I was so tired of praying. I was out of prayer, and this was like another thing. Following morning, the doctor came on the day that the baby was supposed to be discharged, and the doctor said we cannot discharge the baby because we have discovered that she is jaundiced. Hey, I didn't know what jaundice meant until I googled it, and I wish that I've never googled what jaundice is, because now I just wasn't okay, like totally, because there were like different pictures, different causes, and different treatments. So the doctor said that we are going to put the baby under lights until we see the baby is okay. So now they had to put her back into an incubator, but this time she will have blue lights going in the incubator, lighting her, basically, like, I don't know whether burning her skin or whatever is the right word, but it's some sort of treatment for jaundice. And they also had like to put a, what's this, they have to put her on antibiotics again, but different ones this time. Hey, I just didn't understand what was going on. So they did that on Friday, and I think the antibiotics were for 3 days. They were for 3 days, and they kept like testing her blood to check whether the levels of this jaundice are going down. They did that. Hey, it was like another journey, if I may say so. It was another journey, a hard one, in fact, because you will hear towards the end of the story. Just told me that maybe on Monday I might go home. If the jaundice levels are down, then I will be able to go with her on Monday. I was just so sick of the empty promises, because now I know that something else will happen on that day. But luckily the levels were down, but the baby was still yellow, so they told me to go home. They told me like to feed her like every 2 hours, because the levels of the jaundice get down once the baby gets enough liquid in. Okay, so on Monday we went home. So I went home on Monday. Okay, cool. And I was back home. I was so happy. I was like, yes, finally. And I got home. Everything was well, but my baby was still yellow. On Thursday, yes, on Thursday I went to the baby's second week checkup, and I was told, oh, the nurse checked the baby and said, hey, your baby is yellow. And I told her, yes, the baby is yellow, but we were discharged from hospital on Monday. And I told her what happened throughout the experience, and she said, the baby is yellow and it worries me. Let me just ask another doctor to have a look at her. Okay, I went to another doctor, and the doctor said, yes, your baby looks yellow, but she's not that yellow. She like checked her skin and her eyes and said, the baby's not that yellow, but just to be sure, let's check if her levels are low enough for her to go home. So she took some blood and told us to come the following day to check the results, and we did. When we got there, we were told that her levels are high, so she has to be admitted in hospital. So I just felt helpless because I've spent like 2 days at home and now I have to go back. So I got home and then packed things and went to the hospital with my boyfriend. And when we got there, we got to the, what's the side called? It's the, is it the ER? Yeah, the emergency side, God one. So when we got there, another nurse attended us and said, "Hi man, the baby doesn't look yellow." And she kept like doing this on her nose, on her forehead, and she said, "No, look, your baby is not yellow. She's not that yellow for her to be admitted." And it was the same thing the other nurse said at the clinic. And then another doctor came and took blood tests while we were waiting in the ER and said we should wait for like 2 hours for the results to come back. And it was another waiting game. We waited and waited and waited, and we kept convincing ourselves that no man, the baby's fine. And when we got there, and the results came in and they said, "No, we have to admit the baby." So now it was later at night and they kept like doing the whole procedure of the baby being like put on IV line again. And then while they were preparing a room for us, the baby was put under lights again, but this time in the ER while we were waiting. And you know when you feel like numb and helpless and you just don't know when things will be fine. I felt so alone in that. I felt so alone, and I don't want to cry. I felt so alone, and I felt like, I'm sorry guys, but everyone's at home, so I don't have time to record this at night, so that's why I'm recording it in daytime. So I'm sorry for the noise. As I was saying, I felt so alone. Like even I don't know, I can't speak for my partner because I know he also felt like some type of way, but being the one who is there to experience such, like having your baby being like poked with needles every fucking day, I just didn't understand what was going on or when things will be okay. I'm recording this 10 months later, but I thought I have healed because I've tried to record this before and it went sideways, and I actually thought that I was fine by now. We were taken to our ward, but this time it is not the NICU. So we were taken to the children's ward, and it wasn't the nursery anymore because the baby's now like 2 weeks old. So I got checked in, the baby got checked in, and the baby was now officially admitted in hospital. This was like 4 days after the baby was discharged. We were back in hospital, and it was around 10 p.m. at night, and I was given a room. As I've said, we were booked into the public hospital, so there was a bed. There wasn't a bed for me, so I was like sitting on the chair the entire night, and the baby was in the incubator with the lights on, and I would go and feed her, change her nappy, all of that. So I was woken up at, I think it was 2 a.m. Yeah, it was at 2 a.m. The nurse came in and checked the baby, checked the glucose, and then yeah, that's it. And then in the morning a doctor came in and took some blood for some blood work to test them out. It was the same procedure every day, and a week passed. We were still in hospital, and instead of the baby's levels, the jaundice levels decreasing, they ended up increasing like every day, to a point that there was another doctor who hardly came into my ward and asked me that, why is the levels increasing every day? Do you feed the baby? And I tell him, yes. Is he feeding right? Is she feeding well? And I was saying yes the entire time. And the doctor said, okay, you know what, just pump milk so that we can actually see that the baby's drinking the milk. And I was told to give her, I think it was 60 mils. Yeah, it was 40 before, and then they increased it by 60. And then he said that if the baby isn't drinking, or if the levels tomorrow are up again, then I'm gonna put the baby in an antibiotic, as well as, I forgot that thing, what's that thing, it's like a drip. And then I said okay, fine. The following morning the baby was still drinking like that 60 ml, and the levels kept coming up. And then they put that thing, that was the worst thing they ever did. When they did that, my baby's hand where they put the IV line was swollen. So now this was one of my worst fear ever. It was the beginning of my worst fear. So they removed the IV in her hand, and then they placed it in another place, which was her feet. No, her arm. Yes, it was in her arm now. The exact same thing happened. They removed it and put it in her leg. That is where like the baby's veins are visible. The same thing happened. The baby's feet were swollen. So now I was told that, I think this was now like 2 weeks later, I was told that her hand and her arm and feet are getting swollen. They need to put the IV line so that the baby could get all the fluid and antibiotics. So now these places were the only places that are visible, that have like visible veins. So now that it's a problem, they have to put it on her head. I was fighting. There were like 3 doctors in my ward. They tried to convince me that I should put the IV line in her head, and I said no the entire time. And they said that if I don't do that, something bad will happen to the baby, and they need to insert that IV line in her head. And I was like, okay, fine, you've put it in her hand, arm and leg. What will happen when you put it in her head and then it swells? they said no, it won't swell. Like they tried there. I called my boyfriend and told him to come because I just wasn't convinced, because this is a head. You don't mess up with your head. They explained and they explained until I said yes. Took the baby out of the incubator and they put her in another room. My baby was screaming her lungs out. They cut her hair and they placed the IV line. And you know, when they place it, they like poke it. Let's say they poke it here. If they see that there isn't any blood coming, they poke it in another place, and then they poke it until they find the correct vein to place the IV line. They brought the baby back, and the following morning a nurse came in for the regular checkup, and I told her, like, they put bandage on the baby's head after they've done like putting the IV line. So when a nurse came in the ward, I told her to look at behind my baby's ear. I could see there was like a bit of swelling. So the nurse came in, and so the nurse said, okay, let me take a look at it, and then unwrapped the bandage, and the baby was like, it was this big. She was swelling, and the nurse said, no, I am just taking this IV line out for a few hours and I will let the doctor know in the morning. So the doctors do their rounds around 8, so now it was 6 a.m. So at 6 a.m. told another nurse who was coming in at 7 that this and this is happening, please inform the doctor about it. I took the IV line out because the baby was swelling, so they need to like section the IV line in another place. So this one who came in at 7 knew all about the changes, the changing of the IV placement, and she said that, you know, this baby has been swelling since, but I will like communicate with the doctor and inform him that this is happening. And yani again, the doctor came, and she said that, let me take out the fluid. I don't know what the name of that fluid is, but it's like a drip. Let me take out this fluid. Maybe this is causing the baby to swell. And besides, the baby's like feeding well, so they took that thing out. I was so relieved, but they had to like place the IV line for antibiotics because the baby was so young to like have the antibiotics orally. Okay, fine. And then days went by and the baby was not getting well, so it was my 3rd week there, and the baby there was progress because they took her out of the lights, and she was yellow but not that much. But now she had to finish the antibiotics, which were like 7 days. On that 3rd week, my baby was turning a month old, and we had to celebrate it there. She got like a teddy bear for being a strong girl, and then all we had to do now was like finish the antibiotics. She was feeding well, and then another doctor, I think it was like an intern, came in and explained that since the baby has been through this, we have to like check her regularly as she grows. But before I get discharged, I have to go and see a cardiologist. Is it a cardiologist? The doctor who like deals with heart conditions and stuff, all matters of the heart. We have to they have to check whether the baby's heart is doing well, is beating well, and all of that. There are no signs of like infections and stuff. They told me that I have to, when the baby grows, I have to go for a checkup to check whether her sight is well, her ears are well, and yeah, that's it. So now it's on Friday, and the baby had finished has to finish antibiotics on Saturday. So I was so sure that I'm going home on Sunday, but that didn't happen. On Saturday, the doctor came in and told me that could you please like stay for tomorrow, because we have to take you guys to another doctor, which is a specialist, to check the baby's heart. I couldn't sleep because, like, you know when you've like heard like a lot of bad news after bad news, I was just like, I had no hope that I would find good news. So it was now Monday morning. My boyfriend came and we traveled with the ambulance to another hospital in PE. And when we got there, we didn't like wait in a queue. We just checked in and then went to the doctor, and they checked the baby's heart. So they checked the baby's heart and they checked everything, and they said, oh, this baby is doing well, there's nothing wrong with her, she's perfectly fine. And then we went back to the hospital that we were in, and we gave them the results, and then they said we are free to go. So happy. And my baby was like 1 month 1 week old, and I have spent 4 weeks in hospital because of lung infection. At first, lung infection that turned into the baby getting jaundice. So to anyone who is going through the same thing that I went through, I just want to tell you that everything will be fine at the end. Just be strong for your baby. All you need to do is to be strong. I know it's not easy, but it will get easy eventually. I was even friends of the nurses, like they would check up on me, like we would chat, have a chat, and I know mentally you will not be okay. Even after, it won't be okay. Like a lot goes on when you are experiencing such. Even for those who have like premature babies, I know what you are going through, because I've seen how hard it is when you're around your baby who is like getting tested every day, checked their weight if it's like, and if it's getting bigger, or just seeing your baby getting poked is not like fun to watch. It's like traumatic to me, and I hope that you will be fine, and I'm praying for you to get this, for your baby to get better and healthy, and it will be well at the end, even though it doesn't feel like it right now, but everything will work out perfectly. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please do give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you are not yet subscribed. And yeah guys, that was my experience, and yeah, bye.